3 years ago, we sold everything we had so that we could go backpacking and travel the world, and it did not go as planned, to say the least. From backpacking to van life struggles to apartment beach living, I'm going to tell you all of the things that led up until this moment in 2025 and where we're going from here. But I can't even get into that without taking you all the way back to the beginning, because everything that's happened from 2022, the beginning of the year, to now all ties in together. So 2021, I moved to my first big girl apartment in Seattle. I was by myself. It was a whole new experience. Throughout that year, I had built my business online, and my intention was to be able to travel full time. I know I said I would only take you to 2022, but that's a little bit that you need to know before then. So in 2022, beginning of the year, January, my partner and I and our cat decided to finally take my business out on the road, and we would start backpacking and traveling full time. So at that time, we sold everything we had in Seattle, and everything that we had left, we packed into our 2 backpacks, put our cat into her backpack, and we flew to Puerto Escondido, Mexico. And that's where we started our backpacking full-time travel nomadic experience. This was a big risk because while I had been building my business, I wasn't an overnight success, and it wasn't something that was super comfortable financially yet, but we had an online income, and so we just decided we're gonna hit the road and we're gonna figure it out as we go. Side note, I also had a nice cushion of an emergency fund in case we needed it. So we had gotten to Mexico, and it was honestly all of our dreams come true. We were surfing every day, living in my bathing suit, going swimming. I was working from beautiful cafes with views looking over the ocean. We met all of these people who were doing the same thing. It was just literally, we couldn't have asked for it to be a better experience. But about 1 month in, we started realizing that my income wasn't as comfortable as we had wanted it to be. We didn't feel secure in our money situation. To add to that, I also had such a scarcity money mindset that I wasn't even ready to tap into my emergency fund. I had the thought of like, if I use this money now, then we're not going to have it in case we really need it, which obviously we really needed it at that time, but it wasn't clicking for me. Basically, we had taken all of the money that we had for that month, and we broke it down into weeks and then days. So we gave ourselves a daily budget, and I wish I could remember what it actually was. This will give you an idea of how little it actually was. We were in Oaxaca City, and we had gone to the market, and we said, okay, we have our daily budget. We need to get dinner. Like, what can we get for dinner that fits into this budget? And every single thing was too much. And so there were even things that would last longer than a day, so like we could technically use our next day budget, or maybe like enough for the week, but I was so like, no, we have to stick to our daily budget, which only allowed for us to get an avocado. And so for dinner that night, Jason and I shared an avocado, and then we had some leftover chip crumbs, and that's when we knew we were at our lowest point. It was really eye-opening to be like, oh, okay, like this is where we're at. Like, we're pretty down in the dumps if we're gonna be sharing an avocado for dinner, because we don't want to spend our cushy emergency fund on actually feeding ourselves. And so much so that it led to the point that we said, we have to cut this short. We didn't figure out how to make money consistently. We need to go home and reset. So it was really hard to let go of our dream of being able to just backpack and travel full time. And in hindsight, you know, I really kicked myself because I'm like, we could have kept going and just figured it out. You always figure it out, but instead we ran away. However, I understand in the moment we did what we felt we needed to do, and we went back to Seattle for some stability, and our intention was to continue traveling. We just needed some time to reset, to save up a little bit, and then go back out there with a better plan. So we went back to Seattle, and we had this feeling of starting over that was really hard, because we had just a few months prior did the whole starting over thing. We had just sold everything that we owned, and now we had no choice but to get an apartment, furnish it, and do all of the things all over again, because we didn't have family to stay with. We didn't have like a place to go that could have been short term. Also kicking myself because I now know that there are places where you could stay short term and not have to get your own place, but I didn't know it at the time. We did it. We bought the couch, bought the TV stand, all of the things, and we started life over in Seattle. Looking back, I am really grateful for how everything has worked out, and that's really the theme of probably this whole video, is nothing really goes to plan, but everything is part of a plan, because we had such great experiences in that next 6 months that we did live in Seattle, the people we met, the things we were doing, and then we also started to think about how that is annoying that we have to start over every time we come back. Maybe once we are traveling, we do want to just come back and visit, but we don't want to stay with people, or we don't want to feel stagnant or stuck. So we started thinking about how we could combine the two, and really took the leap on something that I had been thinking about since I was a teenager, which is starting van life. And so we made the decision that we would find a van and use that as our home base once our lease was up in Seattle. Now we're in the beginning of 2023, and our lease had just ended in Seattle, our 6-month lease. We were excited to get on the road, get back to traveling, which was always the plan, and start this new adventure, having a van and having a place that we could come back to make it feel like the long-term international travel was actually sustainable, because we would have a place of our own to come back to, our own home. We would buy a home basically. And so we, at the beginning of 2023, we bought Eleanor, where I'm sitting in right now, in San Diego, and we built her out within like 3 weeks. But we did have a backpacking trip planned in Asia and Australia. Once we built her out in March, we left for 2 months so that we could go do that, and then our plan was to come back and then jump into van life. However, while we were gone, she had to go to the mechanics, and then that was really drawn out. It turned into a 3+ month issue. Couldn't trust the mechanic. It was just one issue after another with the actual mechanics of the car. And so even when we came back from backpacking, we had to wait another like month or so until we were officially on the road. And even then, throughout the next 3 months, every single time we turned the car on, it was a little heart attack, because we didn't know if she was gonna turn on. But all of that aside, we were starting van life. It was another dream come true. It was everything we could have imagined. We would pack up the car with food and water and everything we needed and go off grid for like 3 weeks at a time. I was still working on my business, so I was working there. We were paddleboarding, and that's what our days consisted of. We were traveling with my cousin, who was also in a van, and it was just something out of a movie. Oh my gosh, I really felt like we had hit the jackpot. Took the van from California up the coast to Seattle over a 3 to 4 month period, and could not say anything better about it, except for the mechanical issues. We basically always had an issue, but we always figured it out too, which was fine. Until we didn't figure it out. Because then we were in Seattle, okay? We were ready to make our trip back down. The plan the whole time was to go up to Seattle and then make our way back down, because our friends were getting married in October, and so we wanted to make it down for that. So we turned on the van to literally start the first drive south, and she didn't turn on, which we were like, okay, it's fine, we're used to it. But then she like really didn't turn on. We got as far as this really sketchy neighborhood and parked her in a gas station, and we had a mechanic come out and look at her, and basically she had a brand new alternator, but the wire that connects to it was completely burnt off. So basically every time we had turned her on before, it was like burning more and more, and now it was gone. It didn't make sense to figure out how to fix it there in Seattle, just with the logistics of everything. So we ended up shipping her back to California. That was super heartbreaking, because it felt like we had failed. Like, this was such a long time coming, and we had dealt with these issues for so long, and now we're here, and now it's just over. At this time, our nervous systems were just shot because of how many times we had to deal with the mechanical issues, and so we just felt like we really needed stability and security, and we didn't have the energy to continue figuring out what was going on with the van. We came to the decision to yet again get another apartment and start all over again, and we moved to Santa Monica. And so we're now in October of 2023, and then that's when we started living in Santa Monica. UC was not the goal, it was not the plan. That's just the road that we were met with. And while I can say now that I wish the van never stopped working, I wish we could have continued that, I also know that the last year that we've lived in Santa Monica has been so life-changing. The people we've met, the experiences we've had, the ways that we've grown, we never would have gotten the chance to have if we had continued in the van. So everything happens for a reason. Because, you know, we had thought, okay, maybe we'll move to another apartment. Like, this is what we are meant to do, live in an apartment. But like, it didn't really feel right. And then we remembered, oh yeah, that's why, because we never actually planned for this. It was a detour and we loved it. It was a great detour, but like, what we've always wanted to do was to be traveling full time. So we fixed the van, which ended up being a less than $100 fix, which was annoying, but also just proof that we were always meant to be in Santa Monica for the chapter that we were. So as soon as our lease ended, we moved back into Eleanor, and we have been living in the van for 3 months now. And again, everything we needed. We now have 2 cats. They both love traveling in the van. They both love being outside. Our apartment that we lived in Santa Monica was the biggest one that we had ever had. And honestly, it was overwhelming how big it was. And so I'm happy to be in a tiny space again. We've also had 0 issues with the van. And so that's been really validating and such a fun experience. But that's not where the story ends, because now we're in January and it's about to get really cold, really wet, and basically everywhere. We are in the warmest part that I feel like we could be in Southern California, and it's gonna get cold here. And it is insulated. It's warm in here, but like, she wasn't built for cold. But even if it was super warm in here, you live in such a small space and then you can't go outside because it's cold. Like, it just sounds miserable. A lot of van lifers actually go to Baja, Mexico in the winter to escape the cold, which is on my bucket list and something that we still plan to do, but we just don't feel ready yet to take her down there. However, we do have plans to go south for the winter, and we're gonna be heading to Mexico still. So we're gonna be going right back to Puerto Escondido, where it all started 3 years ago, and I am so excited. So we're gonna be leaving the van here, packing up our backpacks and our 2 cats, and we're gonna be making our way back down to the coast of Mexico. It really is coming full circle, because this is exactly where we started our travel backpacking journey. I just feel like we are so much better prepared for this experience. In the past 3 years, we've grown so much as people, but in our money mindset and our knowledge of things, like, I just think it's going to be such a better experience, and we're going to have the chance to redo all of that. However, I have to say that our money situation is very similar, if not like even not as good as it was the first time we were in Mexico. So that will be really interesting to navigate. This is actually what we've been working for and towards for so long, because we've always wanted to just have the van as our home and come back to in between international long trip or long-term travels. And that's what's happening now. I still don't believe it's real. I feel like I won't until we step on the sand. The things that I'm going to be focusing on are staying consistent with content creation, with my relationship to myself, building a community, and just basically all of the things that I feel like I have put off in previous years because of fear, because of money mindset, because of limiting beliefs in general. Content creation is one of them. I've had like YouTube channels and content stuff since like junior high, honestly, and I've just never stuck through long enough to give it even a chance to go anywhere. This year is the year that I'm staying consistent with it. We're actually going tomorrow to pick up a nice vlog camera. I'm excited to just go full force into all of the things that I have pushed to the side, and I really feel like that's what this year is gonna be, especially just with us literally doing the thing that we had planned and wanted to do 3 years ago, and it's finally happening. But I know that every chapter, every like pivot that we've had to make in the past 3 years has been for a reason, and it's given us a lesson and given us the tools that we now have to make this experience work and make it actually last. So our plans for this year, so we're leaving to Mexico in almost a week, a little bit over a week. And we have a one-way ticket. We have a place booked for 2 or 3 weeks, and that's it. Our loose idea, or a loose like plan, is to travel for the whole year, backpacking all the way down to Argentina. I don't know if that's gonna happen. Obviously, the universe tells us where we need to go. Whenever we come up with a plan, we get kind of turned to do something else that actually we need to do. But luckily now, because I'm gonna stay consistent with this, we can document the whole thing and you can follow along. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching all the way through. I'm gonna be putting updates of our journey every Friday, so make sure you subscribe.